It's Bleach time once again. Welcome back. Today I'll be discussing my first thoughts and impressions on the Arrancar Arrival Arc, which are chapters 183 through 229, or episodes 110 through 127. A lot of people say that Bleach falls off after the Soul Society arc. So has it fallen off for me?
No.
I don't know if maybe I'm under Aizen's hypnosis, or if you guys are saying that because there's filler that follows the Soul Society arc, which if that's the reason, I mean I guess fair enough. But I skipped it, so I can't speak on it. But if we're talking about this arc in particular, I strongly disagree. I mean, look at this and tell me you're not having a good time.
Dude, put that thing away. They're like children here.
This arc got me extremely hyped at moments, but it did also confuse me at times, which I'll explain in detail in a minute. Because believe me, I have a lot to say about this arc. But before we hop into the review, I want to remind everyone that if you enjoy these Bleach reviews, to give the video a like and subscribe, as I plan to cover all of Bleach as I progress through the story. With that out of the way, let's talk about the Arrancar Arrival Arc. So at the end of the last arc, our crew returned home, and now it's time to go back to school. We meet up with the side characters we haven't seen since the first arc, like Tatsuki, who can see Ichigo's substitute Soul Reaper badge. Which is something I forgot to mention in the last video, but yeah, he's officially a substitute Soul Reaper now. Tatsuki seeing this immediately grabbed my attention because I'm like, how is this possible? She showed no sign of this before, and she, crazy enough, won't be the last to do this. Ichigo gets an alert about a hollow appearing, so he, Chad, and Orihime rush out of the classroom after the hollow, and Tatsuki looks out the window to see Ichigo fully dressed as a Soul Reaper. Ichigo takes down the hollow quickly, and right when I was thinking this will be like the first arc again, this guy appears, floating in the sky. This guy is Shinji Hirako, and he is the new transfer student in Ichigo's class. He immediately shows his interest in Ichigo and sits next to him and says they should become friends. Later that night, another hollow alarm goes off, and so Ichigo switches with Kon and heads out to face it. Unfortunately for Ichigo, Kon decides to also head out and try to pick up women. Oh, Kon, you have no idea on what you missed out on in the Soul Society. While out, Ichigo runs into another Soul Reaper, whose name I won't even try to pronounce, and he's revealed he's the one taking Rukia's place. Ichigo laughs at him right before Shinji appears and attacks Ichigo with his Zanpakuto. Ichigo asks him to tell him who he is, and Shinji reveals he has a hollow mask just like Ichigo. He reveals he was a Soul Reaper who has stepped into the domain of hollows and calls himself and Ichigo Vizards. While this is happening, a Menos Grande appears behind Uryu, and he has to fight it despite having no powers. The most he is able to do is destroy its arm, that it regenerates, but, to my surprise, Uryu is saved by none other than his father, who has Quincy powers, despite us believing Uryu was the last Quincy. His father reminds Uryu that he simply had no interest in being a Quincy and that his powers won't disappear so easily like Uryu's did. However, he informs Uryu he can bring back his Quincy powers, then he says only if Uryu swears not to associate with Soul Reapers ever again. Well, on one hand, Uryu having his powers back will be great because it means he doesn't have to take a back seat or disappear from the story, but at the same time, his interactions with Ichigo and the others are one of my favorite aspects of the show, so I'm hoping he just gets them back and ignores his father's request.
I have a hole in my chest.
Grand Fisher appears in the human world and sees Kon in Ichigo's body and attacks him. Okay, now time to talk about the most confusing part of this arc for me, and that is the Bount characters. These three are from the Bount filler arc, which I skipped, and usually filler characters are just that, filler. But these guys don't seem to be. Kon is being chased by Grand Fisher, and these guys show up to help him. Which at first made me think, well, maybe then Grand Fisher will just escape and show up later, and is only here to fill up time, but no. That doesn't seem to be the case. They are there even during an important and what is definitely canon moment. So, I have to ask my manga reader viewers out there. Do they actually exist in the manga? I assume not, but then why are they here in this arc and during an important moment? How does this chase and fight go if they don't exist? This makes me feel so stupid for skipping the filler, but at the same time, normally you skip filler because it doesn't matter. But these guys seem to matter, and now I'm unsure if I should skip filler in the future. Let me know in the comments why this is a thing if you know why. The canon moment I'm referring to is when Ichigo's dad shows up revealing he was a Soul Reaper / ex-Soul Reaper the whole time, which blew my mind and had my hype levels skyrocket. Grand Fisher grows in size and Isshin refers to him as an Arrancar, a group of hollows seeking to attain Soul Reaper powers by removing their masks. So, remember how in the first video my theory was that Grand Fisher would be a main bad for an arc that Ichigo would have to overcome? Yeah, well, I was completely off the mark because Isshin is the one who not only fights him, but kills him. I couldn't believe it. A part of me still doesn't. Isshin doing it actually makes perfect sense and is a viable substitute, even though I do wish we got the rematch of a much stronger Ichigo versus a stronger Grand Fisher. Urahara shows up and asks Isshin how it feels to be a Soul Reaper again for the first time in 20 years, and if he feels better now after killing Grand Fisher. Isshin says he didn't hate Grand Fisher, and his only regret was that he couldn't save his wife that night. Isshin confirms that Urahara's prediction of the Vizard making contact with Ichigo came true. Isshin describes the Vizard as an outlaw group of Soul Reapers who tried to gain hollow powers through forbidden methods, but they don't work with the Arrancars. Natural Arrancars have existed for a long time, but Grand Fisher was way stronger than them, leaving Ishin to conclude that Aizen has made contact with them to try and make a proper Arrancar with the Hogyoku. Urahara says the Hogyoku should take another year to fully mature, and Ishin confirms it isn't complete as Grand Fisher was an incomplete Arrancar. They sense Ichigo heading their way, and Ishin decides he shouldn't stick around and let Ichigo see he's a Soul Reaper. The next day at school, Shinji shows up and greets Ichigo as if nothing happened. Ichigo drags him out of the room and tells him he doesn't need to come back to school since he was only there to invite Ichigo to the Visor. Shinji says he won't give up and that whether he likes it or not, Ichigo is already a Visored and that being a Soul Reaper will lead to Ichigo's inner hollow taking over his body and destroying everything he ever cared about. He offers to teach Ichigo how to control his hollow side if he comes with him. Later that day we meet another Visored, Hiyori, who beats up Shinji demanding to know where Ichigo is and telling him to convince Ichigo or bring him by force. Orihime and Chad approach them and ask them who they are and what they want with Ichigo. Hiyori refuses to tell them and says instead they will die here, which forces Shinji to grab her and run away with her while apologizing. I really like these two as characters and their dynamic is a lot of fun, and I just have to hope in the future they won't try to kill any of our main cast. Ichigo is lying on his bed and his inner hollow berates him and tells him how he will take over him and is getting closer and closer every day, scaring Ichigo and having him question what he should do. Karin enters and asks him what's wrong and reveals that she knows he is a Soul Reaper.
You knew?
Ichigo just tries to laugh it off like it's nothing before they feel powerful Ryatsu pressure weighing them down. This powerful pressure was from two fully developed Arrancars that have arrived in the park. The big guy's named Yami, and the other one's name I can't pronounce to save my life, but I will try. Yorikora? Yami starts devouring on the surrounding people's souls. Chad and Orihime rush to the park. Okiura mentions that they are looking for one human, and that human ends up being Ichigo. One of the humans who got hit by Yami's ability was Tatsuki, who was able to survive it, which is because she has a bit more Ryoko than the other citizens did. Yami makes sure this isn't who they were after and tries to finish her off, only for Giga Chad to show up and protect her. Chad tells Orihime to take Tatsuki and run, and sends a blast at Yami, which has no effect as Yami one-shots Chad. Orihime rushes over to Chad and begins to heal Chad. Well, actually, it turns out she isn't healing Chad. Her ability has been reversing time and space to take away people's wounds as if they never happened. So you're telling me Orihime also has an OP move just like Aizen?
Alright, would anyone care to explain?
Orihime decides she shouldn't rely on Ichigo to always save her, so she launches Tsubaki at Yami, and he straight up kills Tsubaki. Yami then goes after Orihime and Ichigo arrives and blocks his attack. Ichigo instantly activates his Bankai, which I have to say is a nice change of pace to see a character go straight to their strongest move / weapon at the beginning then wait until it's a last resort. Hollow Ichigo tells Ichigo to switch places with him, causing him to be distracted and gets kicked by Yami. Ichigo is unable to move his body because of his inner hollow. Urahara and Yoriichi show up and Yoriichi repeatedly knocks Yami down like it was nothing. Just when I finally thought I would get to see Urahara in action, Oikora knocks out Yami and they escape back to Waco Mundo. Ichigo is back home all bandaged up and staring at his ceiling, dreading the day his hollow side takes over him. I wasn't expecting this arc to tackle mental health, but this is exactly the theme during this arc. Ichigo keeps envisioning his hollow side taking over him. He blames himself for his friends being hurt. He's at his lowest point, and he feels like he is too weak. And he is slowly trying to push those around him away to avoid his fear of his inner hollow hurting them. I will touch more on this later as there is more examples of this theme in the next few episodes. Captain Hitsugaya, Rangiku, Ikaku, Yumichika, Renji, and even Rukia appears at the school dressed as students, telling Ichigo they are there to help him prepare for the war against the Arrancars. Acting as if no time has passed at all, Rukia kicks Ichigo in the face and drags him out to his Soul Reaper form, and the first arc begins again. Don't really think leaving Ichigo's body lifeless in front of the class is the best way to go about things, but they seem pretty distracted. Wait, what are we talking about? Oh, right! Rukia takes Ichigo to fight a hollow, and Ichigo should have no problem defeating it, but he struggles to do so because of his fears and his constant visions of his inner hollow taking over him. Rukia tells him to get stronger if he is afraid to lose. Do what he must to protect the ones he loves, and grow strong enough to crush his inner hollow, because that is the Ichigo she knows in her heart. This gives Ichigo the will to defeat the hollow. This follows the theme in a great way because it shows that the people we love and care about can help us find the strength we feel like we lack, the confidence when we are afraid. People are depressed or afraid, it's easy to not talk about it like Ichigo has done with his friends and family. But when we have someone like Rukia encourage us and remind us how strong we really are, it can help us overcome anything. Ichigo goes and apologizes to Orihime and tells her he will get stronger to protect her, bringing her relief that he is back to his old self again. Ichigo and Rukia head back to his house and the others show up through his ceiling light. How did they even get up there? Renji explains that Arrancars are hollows who have removed their mask in an effort to acquire Soul Reaper powers. They are few in number, and even fewer have fully developed. Renji explains that the Soul Society was just going to monitor the situation until Aizen made a move. Hitsugaya tells Ichigo that effective Arrancars aren't made by taking the mask off random hollows, but instead of those that are Menos Grande level and above. We learn about the 3 classes of Menos, the first of which are Gillians, considered the lowest class and foot soldiers of the Menos, and is the one Ichigo slashed back in the first arc. The second class is the Ajukas, probably said that wrong, but try my best here, who are smaller in size and number than the Gillians, but are highly intelligent and much more powerful to the point of giving orders to the Gillians. And lastly, the Vasto Lordes, the highest class of Menos, who are human-sized and extremely few in number, revealing that the latter are even more powerful than Captain-class Soul Reapers. Hitsugaya says that Aizen even having 10 of the Vasto Lordes could spell the end of the Soul Society. And wouldn't you know it, there are actually 20 of them. Great! Yami and Urikura return to Aizen's throne room, and Aizen instructs Urikura to relay everything he saw and felt in the human world. So he takes out his eye and crushes it. This shows Aizen and the others what he experienced back in the human world. Aizen brings up his decision that Ichigo was not worth killing. Urikura affirms this and says his specific orders were to kill Ichigo only if he proved to be a threat to the Arrancar, prompting Grimmjow, who is one of the coolest design characters I've seen, to accuse him of being soft. Urikura explains that Aizen is concerned about Ichigo's growth rate rather than his current power level, and that Ichigo's powers are extremely unstable and that he might prove useful to the Arrancar if he does not simply destroy himself in the future, which is why Urikura let him live. Ichigo tells the others they can't stay at his house, and Rangiku tries to change his mind. Honestly, man, I think you should reconsider. Rangiku decides to stay with Orihime, although you knew what you were doing. Hitsugaya goes with her.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
And Renji goes to Urahara's shop, leaving Rukia to stay with Ichigo like the good old days. Well, almost like the good old days, as she doesn't get to stay in his closet this time around. Rukia, why would you want a window in a closet? We see Orihime being sad and admitting to Rangiku that she was jealous that Rukia was the one to help Ichigo. She feels like a bad person because of this, and Rangiku comforts her and tells her that Ichigo needs them both. Rangiku, I feel like a bad person. All jokes aside, I do love seeing characters we never interacted before be close as if they've known each other since the beginning. Sadly, the time for naked hugs is over, as Grimmjow and other Arrancars arrive in the human world and detect the location of everyone and split up to kill them. Everyone feels the Arrancar's presence and head out to meet them in battle. Chad tries to face one of them and would have been killed if Ichigo didn't stop the attack. Ichigo tells Chad to run, and so he does. While I felt bad for Chad in this moment, it quickly got replaced with more hype as finally, since the first episode, we get to see Rukia fight. We get to see her Zanpakuto in its Shikai form, and it's an ice-based Zanpakuto like Hitsugaya's. While not as cool as his, I still think it fits Rukia and love seeing her take down an Arrancar with her ability. Ikaku and Yamachika are fighting in Arrancar as well, and I cannot believe what I'm about to say, but remember in the first video where I said this? Get a look at Ichigo's school life, where we're introduced to several characters who will be important for the story going forward, and some who are not. Well, turns out he's actually important. What? He can see them. He can see Soul Reapers. I don't know if I'm going to upset anyone, but I never liked this character. I find him so annoying. Anyways, the fight between Ikaku and Idrid was maybe my favorite fight in this arc. I didn't talk about him much, but I really like Ikaku as a character, and during this fight we learned that he is able to use Bankai. What? I could have never predicted this, and his Bankai design is so sick, and it being a purely offensive Bankai just makes sense with the kind of person Ikaku is. We get a flashback and learn how he met Kenpachi, and since both men love to fight, they naturally fight, with Kenpachi winning. Ikaku begs for death, but Kenpachi tells him not to accept this as a loss, and only accept defeat when he is dead. That he should focus on surviving and dedicate himself to killing the one who let him live. Ikaku later learned that Kenpachi became the Levitt squad captain and tracks him down and joins his squad. We also learned that he helped train Renji, and since Aizen left, there was talk about selecting new captains. And Ikaku was chosen but turned it down, as it would prevent him from fighting Kenpachi. I really respect Ikaku as a character, and this guy steals the show whenever he's in a fight. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the other fights except for Ichigo versus Grimmjow, but everyone else wins their fights, and it's nice to finally see Renji win for a change. We do learn that the Arrancars are numbered, and that the top 10 are called Espadas, with the lower the number being, the stronger they are. Grimmjow is the only Espada here, and he is number 6. Ichigo's Shikai has no effect on Grimmjow, and so he switches to Bankai. Even though he's using Bankai, Ichigo just gets absolutely rocked. I mean, look at this. Ichigo is finally able to do some damage when he uses Getsuga Tensho, but this causes his inner hollow to slowly try and take control. The fight ends when Tozen shows up behind Grimmjow and tells him he did this without Aizen's permission, and takes him back to Waco Mundo and punishes Grimmjow by taking off his arm. Orihime heals everyone after the fight, and Rukia asks Ichigo if he feels responsible for her injuries, and tells him not to, as they were her own fault. She also suggests Ichigo talk to Urahara about his inner hollow, but Ichigo says he won't because if Urahara knew how to fix it, he would have told him by now. This leads to Ichigo disappearing without saying a word again and goes to meet the Visor. Shinji believes that Ichigo has decided to join them, but Ichigo denies this and says that they will tell him how to control his hollow even if he has to make them by force. Hiyori interrupts the fight and tells Ichigo that the decision to join the Visor is not up to him, since they will be deciding whether or not he can join after seeing what he can do. She tells him to Hollow 5, but Ichigo refuses, so then she reveals her Hollow mask and attacks him, and knocks him unconscious, which allows his Hollow form to take over. Hollow Ichigo tries to choke her to death, but the other Visor jump him and break his mask, freeing Ichigo. Ichigo's training to control his Hollow begins, and he must consume his inner Hollow instead of letting it consume him. In his inner mind, he confronts his Hollow form, and on the outside his body turns more and more into a Hollow. Hollow Ichigo reveals that he and Zangetsu have been one this whole time. This inner fight is a bit weird as they show another filler character from the bout, and I just assume this never happened, so I'm not sure why it's here in the anime, but I guess they just wanted to fill in the 23 minutes. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about it past this. What I will talk about is the philosophical question Zangetsu asked Ichigo, and that question was, what was the difference between a king and the horse he rides on? He's questioning what two beings identical in shape, ability, and strength use to decide which of them will be the king to lead, and which will lend its strength like a horse. Hollow Ichigo claims that instinct is what allows one being to dominate another and become king. He says that the instinct is what fuels someone to kill their opponents, and that Ichigo lacks it, which is why he will lose to him, and that he would never be the horse to a king weaker than he is. This causes Ichigo to recount the battles he had back in the Soul Society, where he used his instinct to overcome his opponents, and he is able to overcome his Hollow side and defeat him. Hollow Ichigo decides to accept Ichigo as his king, but tells him to never forget he can become the king one day if he becomes too weak. While that was going on, Ichigo in the real world almost became completely hollowified and was charging up a Sero attack. I have to say I really like the design of an almost fully formed Hollow Ichigo. He just looks so menacing and truly like a demon, and is it bad that I want to see him in the full form? Yeah, that's probably really bad for Ichigo. Now with Ichigo in control, he breaks free from the Hollow form and has a complete mask now. Orihime meets up with Hitsugaya and Rangiku for a meeting with Yamamoto. Yamamoto reveals that Aizen's plan is to murder the Soul King, who is part of the true royal family and stays in a separate dimension from the Soul Society, guarded in a palace. Yamamoto says that Aizen will create his own Okin to gain access to it, and this will destroy Karakura Town. Since Aizen can't use the Hogyoku till winter, we have months to train and prepare. Momo comes on the screen, and I was relieved to see she was okay, but sadly she still loves Aizen and believes that he must have had a good reason for doing what he did, or was forced by Gin to do it. It truly is sad to see just how manipulated she was by Aizen and still is. Momo is a tragic character, and I can only hope she still doesn't join Aizen at any point. Chad begins training with Renji. Uryu begins training to get his powers back, and Ichigo is training to maintain his Hollow mask for longer. Orihime finds where Ichigo has been and tells him about what Yamamoto said. Yoruichi brings Orihime to Urahara, and he tells her that she won't be fighting in the upcoming battle, since her only means to attack, Tsubaki, is gone, and she cannot heal him. Orihime accepts this and leaves. She runs into Rukia, who asks her what is wrong, and Orihime begins to cry and explain what happened. And Orihime says she would rather be sad than a burden to anyone. Only for Hiyori to show up and drag her back to talk to Hachigen. He is the only one with powers similar to Orihime and is able to recover Tsubaki. This gives Orihime a chance to fight in the battle that's to come, but we end the arc with Aizen looking at the memory of when Orihime healed Chad and he smiles, which has me very concerned for Orihime going forward. This arc, just wow, man. Wow. I know the Soul Society arc is widely considered the best, and for good reason, but I honestly think this arc was my favorite. It's a close call with Soul Society, but this arc introduced us to even more characters that I like Shinji, Grimmjow, Hiyori, etc. I also love seeing Kaku use his Bankai and Ishin revealing he is a Soul Reaper. It was so interesting to watch Ichigo spend most of this arc feeling down, which is usually the opposite of how he is, only for him to then overcome that and get back to the way he was. The prospect of Uryu getting his powers back, and Chad getting stronger as well, has me so excited for what's to come. Though also worried, as I feel it won't be too long till we have some casualties. The worst thing about this arc was the use of filler characters, and it didn't detract from the story, but it just felt strange to include these people that I never met and never even existed in the first place. Really hope they don't continue to do this to future arcs, or I'm just going to have to watch the filler so I understand these characters better. I had so much to say about this arc and couldn't talk about everything, but I still hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on the Arrival arc. If you did, drop the video a like, it helps other Bleach fans see it, and I really have enjoyed reading your comments on a series you love and that I have come to love. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified when the next review drops, and comment your thoughts on the Arrival arc. That's it for now. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.